Circadian rhythms have a cycle length of 24 hours. In other words, a cycle is completed once a day. Two examples of circadian rhythms are the sleep-wake cycle and the core body temperature cycle. We feel sleepy in the evening and we wake in the morning. Most people find it hard to sleep at other times than night time, and shift workers sometimes struggle to cope with forcing their bodies to sleep and wake at unconventional times. This is likely to be because this cycle is in part controlled by an internal body clock and the cyclic release of the sleepy hormone melatonin, which peaks between about midnight and 2 a.m. and troughs around 12 p.m. Our body temperature peaks and troughs in a 24-hour period. It is lowest at around 4:30 a.m. and highest at around 4 to 6 p.m. The cycle also has a slight trough in the afternoon after lunchtime, which is a feature of the internal cycle rather than the effect of eating lunch. The whole cyclic pattern is repeated once a day. Infradian rhythms have a cycle length of more than 24 hours, so a cycle might be completed once a month or once a year, for example. Two examples of infradian rhythms are the female menstrual cycle and the cyclic changes in mood referred to as seasonal affective disorder. The menstrual cycle is repeated once a month, whereas SAD is a yearly cycle. Yearly cycles are referred to as circannual. The menstrual cycle is a female cycle which regulates ovulation and is approximately 28 days in length. The hypothalamus releases a hormone which signals the release of other hormones from the pineal gland. The action of these hormones starts the ripening of an egg in a follicle in the ovaries, and estrogen and progesterone are also released. As a result, the lining of the womb thickens in anticipation of a fertilised egg. The ripened egg is released from the ovaries, and if the egg is not fertilised, it dies and breaks apart, and gradually the levels of estrogen and progesterone fall. After about 2 weeks after ovulation, the womb lining is shed, and this bleeding is called a period, and then the 28-day cycle starts all over again. It is important to note that the actual length of the cycle varies for different women, but that 28 days is the average. Some people experience a cyclic pattern of changes in their mood. It is referred to as seasonal affective disorder, where a low mood is experienced in the winter months, but not during the rest of the year. This winter depression can be considered a biological rhythm, and has been suggested to be due to changes in the levels of serotonin and melatonin, which may be a response to the changes in light levels in winter. Melatonin, for example, is suppressed by light, so more is secreted in the dark. Serotonin and melatonin are also associated with other non-seasonal forms of depression. Ultradian rhythms have a cycle length of less than 24 hours, so each cycle is completed more than once in a day. Two examples of ultradian rhythms are the cyclic pattern of the sleep stages and the basic rest activity cycle. Each of these rhythms has a 90-minute cycle length. When we're asleep, we go through a cycle of alternating between different types of sleep with different patterns of brain activity that repeat over a 90-minute period. When we first fall asleep, we enter a relaxed state of light sleep, where the normal active brainwave pattern slows to a regular synchronized pattern. As you go further into sleep, the waves slow even more and show features called sleep spindles, which are sudden bursts of activity. During this time, body temperature is dropping, breathing is slowing, and generally bodily processes are slowing down. We next move into deep sleep, where our brain activity slows even more, the growth hormone is released, and we're very hard to wake up. This is called slow wave sleep. We next move back into the lighter sleep before experiencing a period of what's called REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep. The body is paralysed, but the eyes are rapidly moving and brain activity changes to the awake desynchronized irregular pattern. This cycle of alternating between non-REM sleep and REM sleep takes about 90 minutes to complete, and as we get to the morning, the actual amount of time in REM sleep increases and slow wave sleep decreases. Another 90-minute cycle is referred to as the Basic Rest Activity Cycle, or BRAC for short. This is essentially a cycle of activity and inactivity, influencing a number of behaviours and functions. For example, alertness and focus have been suggested to peak and trough over 90-minute periods in waking hours. The idea is that it would be impossible and inefficient to operate at a peak optimal level all the time, and so we may fluctuate between active or excited and resting or inactive brain patterns to maintain an optimal level at least some of the time. Kleitman proposed that this was connected to the 90-minute cycle of activity and slowing of brain waves observed when we sleep.